Hello everyone, my name is the Hurricane Geek. Today I'm going to be giving you another update on Tropical Storm Claudette. The forecast stays the same. My cone is still predicting eastern Louisiana as the landfall area, and the models recently have shifted to the east. So a few days ago they were still showing, western Louisiana as a threat, but I knew that was going to happen because the LRC said that eastern Louisiana would be favored. So we're going to look at the impacts, we're going to look at the models, and we're going to basically look at the satellite right now and see what's going on and what I think will happen going forward. So let's start looking at the satellite, the visible, and you can see it looks like we do have a center trying to form near that convection, near the left of that convection, and I think that will happen. I think we'll see a new center form to the left of that convection and head up towards eastern Louisiana. The low-level center that was down in the southern Bay of Campeche, that is going to be heading towards Mexico, and that's just going to die off. So I think we're going to see another area start to form, and basically it's going to follow my track that I've been forecasting for this thing to go towards eastern Louisiana. Now that because we're already seeing all this action happening off the east, this is what you should expect going forward. So just, put that moisture up to the north. Those are the areas that are going to see the most rain. So Mississippi, Alabama, and the panhandle of Florida, they're going to get a lot of rain. And I've been forecasting this for a week now, really. Now this is the another way of looking at it. This is the convection, and those whites you see in there are the strongest convection, the coldest cloud tops. And you could see really it's producing convection, and it's actually doing it over land, which is showing you how moist the environment is. And you can see the shear up to the north. That is going to limit the development chances going forward, going in the early time period. But as we get into the central and then northern Gulf, I think that's when we're going to start to see the intensifying or strengthening happening. And I think we will see Tropical Storm Claudette. Now, I don't think this is going to be a strong storm. This is going to be a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm or lower. So it's not going to be anything stronger than a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm. And again, you can already see the shear kind of impacting this system, spreading all those cloud tops kind of over Florida right now. And that's why we have an overcast day right now. But again, all this rain is going to move up into the northern Gulf by Saturday. This is what's happening right now. This is basically just like a scan of the satellite depiction of it. And you could see on the 850 millibar vorticity, you could see the new center is trying to form to the east of that convection, and that is going to head up again into Louisiana. That orange box that I put there, that's where you have all the action right now. You have all the action happening off to the east. And again, that low level center is going to be moving into Mexico, and that's just going to die off. So this is the water temperatures right now. They are above average in that area. And this is the actual sea surface temperatures. And you can see near the coastline, it's actually pretty warm if you look. We have 30 degrees Celsius water in here. So that's why I'm expecting it to strengthen as we get towards the central and then northern Gulf. I think that's when it's going to start to intensify more. And that's mainly because we're having shear impact the system right now, and it's still very broad. It's still a very broad system. It's trying to get organized. It's taking some time, but I do think we will see that organization take place, and I think we will see Tropical Storm Claudette very soon. We will probably see a potential tropical cyclone get issued later tonight into tomorrow morning, and that would just be a cone forecast. I've already put out my cone forecast like 5 days ago, and it's been accurate since. So I'm expecting the NHC to put out their cone later tonight, early tomorrow morning, and I'm expecting it to look very similar to mine in terms of the track. Now, this is the latest global models on this, and the National Hurricane Center typically uses this to forecast, but right now these models are not actually picking up on the center. We're going to have a new center develop over here that's going to want to bring this thing again towards Louisiana. So when you see this is actually the low level center that I've been talking about. Again, this is going to move in this general direction. This is just not going to happen. It's not going to go towards Texas. And again, the models were kind of trying to show that a few days ago. I was never buying it because the LRC says eastern Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Center is going to be near the tip of the Yucatan there, going towards Louisiana. And again, you can kind of see this on the GFS ensembles. This was on Tropical Tibbets as well. And you can see this is the low-level center right here kind of going into Mexico, and that's just going to die off. And you can see how some of them are showing that. Now, again, the new center is going to form somewhere in here, east convection here, and it's going to want to come in like this. So again, all that convection is going to be heading up in this area. So expect a lot of rainfall in that area. And we're going to show you some maps that depict the rainfall, the total amount of rainfall. Within just the next 2 days, you could see 7 to 10 inches of rain. And I'm going to show you that in a little bit. That's a lot of rainfall. That's not something to take lightly and even if you don't see flooding or you're not in a flood zone, you could definitely still get flooding, so I would be aware of that. Now again, the models on the intensity basically not showing much because again, they're forecasting the low level center right now. The ship's models that you see here, these models just show you the environment. So the environment overall will support a tropical storm, and that's why I do expect it to get up to 50 miles per hour. This would be 50 miles per hour up here. Again, this is not going to happen. We are most likely going to see a storm develop out of this. Max winds probably around 50 miles per hour. Now this is the latest run of the GFS, showing my cone basically. It heads into eastern Louisiana, and that is what I've been forecasting. And you can see there's the low level center there going into Mexico. This is the GFS trend. So just in a day, look at this trend. Again, my cone, the first cone I put out was about 5 days ago, and I was still forecasting eastern Louisiana. So again, 5 days ago, they were showing Texas and western Louisiana. And again, they were pretty consistent on that for a couple of days, and then they changed right at the last moment. And that's why I do these long range forecasts, because the models aren't going to show you, they're not depicting the LRC, they're just showing you what they think. So that's why I could use this and make my own cone, because I can make a cone 7 to 10 days out and it can be pretty accurate. This is the ensemble trend for the past day, the same time period, and you could see again that eastward trend starting off towards Texas at the beginning and then going towards the east with those guidances. And again, that's what I've been forecasting. So this is the latest European. It's still too far to the west. It's not going to happen like this. This is the 00Z, and I just don't see it this far to the west. I think the most likely track would be somewhere in eastern Louisiana here, and then again all that rain and flooding would occur generally in this area here, and that would extend into the Carolinas as well, but the main impacts are going to be felt again in this circled area here. This is the European model for the 60. This was the ensemble forecast. They were still too far to the west. This is not what's going to happen. It's going to happen more to the east. Now again, this was my prior cone issued 5 days ago, and again 5 days ago they were showing Texas as the main landfall area, the Texas and Louisiana borderline, and I wasn't buying that. And this was my 5-day cone forecast, kind of showing it going into eastern Louisiana. They were flipping back and forth during that time period, but for the most part, I was able to nail down eastern Louisiana mainly because the LRC favored this area. And again, this was my April forecast showing that mid-June time period. Eastern Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle needs to watch during these dates. This is the cycling. You can see the cycling. If you want to stop, pause, you could see how it's been cycling. Every like 45 to 48 days, this has been cycling, and that's usually the time period this LRC has been cycling. This year, the cycle period has been 45 to 50 days. So this is where I think it will likely intensify. Again, I'm not expecting much intensification, 50 miles per hour. Louisiana, the eastern Louisiana part is where the landfall will occur, but again, east of that is where you're going to see all the action. So basically in this zone, you're going to see a lot of flooding, a lot of rain. Storm surge is a possibility as well if this thing actually gets up there in the intensity. 50 miles per hour storm surge is possible with 50 miles per hour, and that's what my forecast is. So we could see storm surge in this general area here on the eastern side. Now, this is the Hurricane Zeta track last year, and you could see how very similar in terms of the track. I mean, you had Zeta that hit New Orleans, Louisiana, and it looks like this storm is going to hit New Orleans, Louisiana, or very close, very close. So expect windy weather in Louisiana and east of there. Central western part of Louisiana, I wouldn't say is at risk anymore from this system. All right, so this is again the latest cone. Eastern Louisiana will be favored for this. I'm expecting 50 miles per hour around Saturday AM is when this could make landfall, and then Saturday PM this will be inland over Mississippi, Alabama, and the Panhandle of Florida. And again, I'm expecting gradual strengthening. It's not going to happen near the Yucatan. It will most likely happen in the central and then northern Gulf. So this is a really important factor, because when an earlier cycle repeats, that increases the chances of a major landfall or something stronger in a future cycle. So that's why I'm watching this very closely. You remember with Cristobal last year, Cristobal was actually a sign of what was to come for Louisiana in 2020. And again, if you remember what 2020 brought, it brought Laura. Again, Laura happened during the August time period, so that wasn't when the new cycle got established. So Laura was definitely a sign, and Laura really happened because of Cristobal. So again, this is basically the same scenario, right? We have Claudette making landfall in an earlier cycle. So So these next few dates, these next few cycles, we're going to have to watch extremely closely. I do think we're going to see a stronger storm, 75% chance of that. So there's going to be a stronger storm, most likely in that red zone there during these dates. So expect a stronger storm near the coastline of Louisiana during these dates. All right, so this is the new HWRF model, and you could see the overall forecast would be for this thing to head into Louisiana. If you notice, on the western side, there's not much rain. So Louisiana is actually not going to see much rain, but they're going to see a lot of wind because they're going to be right near the center. So expect a lot of wind in Louisiana. Not so much of rain, though. The rain is going to be focused to the east. So if you live in Pensacola, around the Freeport area, you could be seeing a ton of rainfall. If you live in Alabama, you could be seeing a ton of rainfall. And then going into Georgia, if you live in inland Georgia, live in Atlanta, you could be seeing a lot of rainfall. And going into the Carolinas as well. So expect a lot of rainfall in these areas. Just because it's a weak tropical system doesn't mean it's going to bring a lot of flooding. It's going to bring flooding. I expect that from this system, and we could see some pretty extreme totals from this. This is going to be the main impact. You can see this is the output of the precipitation, and you can see right there, Mississippi, Alabama, and parts of Pensacola look really favored for rainfall. And even inland, look how far this goes inland. Okay, so Georgia, and even in look at how far this goes in. I mean, it's really insane to think about it. How far this goes inland. It's actually going to survive pretty long over land. It's going to be pretty potent over land. It's not just going to be a coastal event. So again, inland Alabama there, a lot of rainfall, and then going into Georgia, South Carolina, still a lot of rainfall. So expect again a lot of rainfall from this system. This was the Weather Prediction Center forecast a few days ago, and generally speaking, that is the path it's going to take, most likely out towards the eastern seaboard. And you can see that rainfall is very high, especially in that central Gulf area. So expect a lot of rainfall. This is a little bit more conservative, but expect more of that rainfall towards the east. This is my forecast for the impacts issued about 2 days ago when the models were still kind of uncertain on where this could go. And the western side will likely be will likely see not much impacts at all from the system. Actually, the rainfall possible will be less than an inch at this point. The gusts will probably only be around 15 to 20, and again, you'll have on and off rain showers, but again, I'm not expecting too much in this area. So this includes Lake Charles. Now the landfall zone, the red area, I'm still expecting pretty gusty winds, maybe not as high as what that's showing there, but I'm still expecting at least around, again, if it makes landfall as a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm, then yes, we will see gusts around the 50-60 mile per hour range. But if it makes landfall a little bit less than that, say 40-45, then we'll be seeing again gusts around the 45 to 50 range. So overall, the impacts are still the same. 2 to 4 inches of rain possible in this zone, squally weather, localized flooding, and widespread power outages because of the gusty winds. And then the storm surge is possible in this area, but it's going to be more likely on the orange shaded area. Here you could see gusts of 40 to 50, especially in those severe storms. You could see gusts up to 60 miles per hour. But again, that's going to be brief. That's going to be like a one-time event. Don't expect that the whole entire time, but you get the idea. Severe storms can be a big threat, and that's why you could see spin-up tornadoes as well in this area on the eastern side. 3 to 6 inches of rain possible. I think that could even be higher at this point. So expect a lot of rain again in that eastern area. Tropical downpours likely, and then storm surge is more likely again on the eastern side. So if we see storm surge with this system, it's going to be kind of in the bay there towards Mississippi and then into Alabama. So again, the Claudette impacts, and again, that pink box is where you're going to see the most impacts in terms of rain, flooding. You'll get all of it basically. You'll get severe weather. You'll get all of it, and that's why I think this area could be in for a pretty bad weekend in terms of weather. Now the yellow area is the inland threat, and the inland threat is still going to be there. You could still see gusts 25 to 40 in this area. 2 to 4 inches of rain possible, definitely. And again, obviously, the closer you are to the orange shade, the more likely these impacts could be higher. Further away you are, so if you live in the Virginia, these impacts may not be as high. So you just have to take that into consideration. But again, this is what I do expect some isolated power outages in this area definitely as well, because again, it's going to be pretty potent over land. So again, this was my hurricane forecast. This was basically what we're seeing right now. We're seeing Claudette verify with my forecast. And I do expect these areas, those red areas that you see there, to be the main landfall areas this year. I don't I don't think we're going to have many outside of those areas. The Outer Banks is not included in here, but I do think they could see a landfall here or there. But again, these are going to be the main areas, I do believe. Now, the storm surge forecast was the same. Again, the Carolinas is not included in here, but they will see a moderate risk or elevated risk of storm surge. But again, those two areas there, eastern Louisiana and South Florida, are going to be the highest risk for storm surge, and this is already verifying because we're seeing Claudette. I don't know if it will have storm surge yet. It's definitely possible we get storm surge watches issued. Actually, I think we will see storm surge watches issued. They may not get to warnings, but I think we will see watches issued at least by the National Hurricane Center. And again, this is how I made my forecast. I made it with the LRC. So this is the tracks of the LRC. There's really 5 main ones that I want you to pay attention to. The Delta track there, the Zeta track, and then the 1120 cycle, that would favor Louisiana. And then the 1019 cycle and Eta there, those two would favor the west coast of Florida and South Florida. Now there is another cycle, the 1031 cycle. That one cycled off the Carolina coast, and some cycles have gotten very close to the Carolina coast, so I wouldn't be surprised if we did have a landfall from one of those cycles. And then the other cycles that you see there generally have stayed out to sea. One skirted South Florida, and they've been kind of doing that ever since. But for the most part, the other 2 cycles, I wouldn't be too worried about. Those 5 main cycles there, though, I think those are going to be the main cycles that establish our storms and landfalls this year. So again, the next cycle that I'm going to be tracking, and I'll probably post a video on this later, is going to be the Eta cycle. Late June is when we have to watch this. And again, this is the cycling around June 29th to July 2nd. The models are starting to hint at maybe some rainfall in this area. It's still very far out, but the models are trying to hint at something maybe. And again, the overall environment is going to be favored in this area for the most part. So I definitely think we could see something in the Western Caribbean head up towards Florida. Whether it becomes tropical or not, we just have to wait and see. But I would be watching Western Florida early July. So again, this is my forecast, Tropical Storm Claudette forecast. I hope you all enjoyed this video. 50 miles per hour, definitely a possibility at landfall. Even though this thing hasn't developed yet, very broad, I think it could actually get itself together into the Central Gulf and then up to the Northern Gulf. So right now my expectation is 50 miles per hour, but overall the impacts presented in this video I think will play out. This is not misleading information. I'm not trying to hype anything. This is going to occur this weekend, and I just want you to be prepared. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys in my next video that will be about the watches and warnings put into place by the National Hurricane Center, and then the potential tropical cyclone forecast issued by them later today. So thank you all for watching.